So I put off watching Black Adam for a really long time since I'm not really a DC guy. The reviews were not so good, and I just honestly didn't really care. Black Adam seemed like another one of those generic dull comic book movies. Even though The Rock has been saying that this film is like the start of the new era for DC, it's not. But I decided to give this film a chance. It was really dumb, but actually pretty entertaining and crowd pleasing. Now, this movie was everything I had hoped for. It's a big, cinematic, fun superhero blockbuster. It doesn't take itself too seriously, it knows it's stupid, but it embraces the superhero wackiness. It's definitely not great by any means, and there are lots of issues with it, but it gave me a fun enough experience. First off, one of the best things about this movie is the action sequences. The sets are big and the action is actually kind of fun. It's definitely not the most interesting or well choreographed, it's just Black Adam flying around, shooting lightning and punching people, but it still has a fun feel to it. In the first action scene, Black Adam starts disintegrating people and tearing their limbs off. Sure, it's not doing anything new and it gets kind of repetitive in the second half, but it's brutal and crowd pleasing. My favorite action scene in this movie is Black Adam against the Justice Society. Each member of the Justice Society has a different power and fighting style, and it's fun seeing them interact with Black Adam. But it does feel like Black Adam was nerfed during these fights. I feel like Black Adam could easily destroy Hawkman. He was literally obliterating people a couple scenes earlier. This movie is action packed and most of the action is pretty good. Sure, it can feel generic and kind of repetitive and tiring in the final act. The second and third acts are just non-stop action, but whatever, the action is fun. Now let's talk about the characters, starting with Black Adam himself, who is fine, I guess. He's pretty one note and generic throughout the entirety of the movie, which I don't mind since the movie isn't trying to be compelling or deep. He's just a by the numbers anti-hero who kills lots of people but saves other people. The Rock gives a good enough performance. He doesn't do anything amazing, but not anything I hated. He just walks around semi-menacingly. They try to give him a sad and compelling backstory in the second half of the film, but it doesn't really work for me. Now let's talk about the Justice Society, which were not that great, but not annoying. I would have wanted more backstory with each member and scenes with them meeting each other for the first time. They just show up. Hawkman was fine, his suit was great, and I liked his banter with Black Adam, even though it was kind of repetitive as we went more into the movie. But I liked his different worldview about there only being two sides, good and evil. Atom Smasher had some funny moments, but he feels kind of forced into the movie for comic relief, and he isn't that interesting. Cyclone is also in this movie. She adds like nothing. Why is she here? But the star of this team is Dr. Fate. Pierce Brosnan does an amazing performance and is super charismatic, portraying this wise character who can see the future. He has lots of great moments and his powers are unique and cool. It gives me Doctor Strange vibes. He may be my favorite character in this movie. There are also some human characters. They were, again, okay. I enjoyed the kid. He was kind of fun. The other human characters were kind of forgettable and not that interesting. But the most forgettable and most poorly written character was the villain. I barely remember anything about him and his plan was really dumb. He isn't compelling or interesting at all, and I forgot his name and I have no care to search it up. He's whatever. Alright, so the characters are okay, but this film isn't trying to give them huge character arcs. They suit the movie they're in. Now let's talk about the story and the plot. Now, this movie really doesn't care about its story. It just rushes all the plot scenes so we can get back to the action. The first act is actually pretty grounded and slow. It doesn't go full comic book bonkers, and there are some cool action scenes. It's just the humans resurrecting Black Adam. I thought that they were gonna lean hard into the fish out of water cliche, where Black Adam is learning about the modern world and technology, which is really annoying in a lot of other superhero movies. Cough, cough, door. But they didn't lean into it too hard. Sure, there are some jokes and scenes where it's present, but it's not annoying and in your face. So Black Adam starts destroying the mercenaries in Kahndaq, and the Justice Society just comes in. Again, there's no backstory or setup to this team of characters. They just come together and it feels rushed. And most of the rest of the movie is just action. It's not compelling or complex. It's just a generic superhero movie, and it's not trying to be deep or layered. The backstory and expedition scenes are fine. I did like the world views on Black Adam. The Justice Society seeing a dangerous and unstable, powerful god who needs to be held in a prison cell, while the people of Kahndaq sees the champion who can save them. It tackles some philosophical questions and themes. The third act is not the strongest, I have to admit. The stories and effects weakens, and again, the villain is extremely forgettable, but there is still a lot of entertainment value here. Like the characters, the story isn't that interesting or compelling, but it works for this movie. Now, this film doesn't have the best dialogue. Some lines are delivered really awkwardly, and some dialogue feels like dialogue a 8-year-old would give to an action figure. Music is pretty good. It fits with the action and overall vibe of the film. The effects were not terrible. It's not Thor Love and Thunder bad, but some shots were not so good. The movie looks fine for the most part. Okay, so now it's time to talk about the mid-credit scene. Spoilers, I guess, but I think that everyone already knows about it just by going onto social media. In the post-credit scene, Amanda Waller talks to Black Adam through a drone and tells him that Kahndaq is his prison now, and if he comes out of the city, she's gonna call in somebody. Black Adam says send them all and destroys the drone, and we see Henry Cavill's Superman walk out of the smoke. Now, if I watched this post-credit scene in theaters with a packed audience and wasn't spoiled, then it would be pretty exciting and surprising. Even though I'm not a big Superman or DC fan, I would still be looking forward to a Superman vs. Black Adam movie. But since I watched this movie after it was out of theaters and it was spoiled to me, and Henry Cavill put out a statement a couple weeks ago saying that he was no longer going to reprise his role as Superman, the scene was instead disappointing and hollow. Why would they teased Henry Cavill coming back as Superman, then announced that he's not coming back 2 months after? It just destroys all the hype and excitement and leaves fans bitter. It would have been better if they just cut that scene out and fans wouldn't have been extremely excited only to realize that Henry Cavill wasn't coming back. It's pretty sad and disappointing, but what are you going to do? Black Adam is still a fun, entertaining, and enjoyable comic book movie. It embraces the superhero wackiness, and it's not trying to be compelling or complex. Yes, it's generic. Yes, it's not doing anything interesting. Yes, the villain sucks and the story isn't that good. But if you like giant, action-packed, fun, cinematic, superhero blockbusters, you're going to have a lot of fun with this film. Just turn your brain off and enjoy the action. I'm giving Black Adam a solid 5 out of 10.